Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello and Dumela Mbagaitsu. This is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Let me welcome you to another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. This one is going to be delightful and exciting, and you're really going to love it. I've got an entrepreneur per excellence, but as usual, I really like my guests to introduce themselves. Welcome to the studio, Ineeleng Kavindama. Could you just introduce yourself briefly to the viewer and give them a short CV of yourself, as it were?
Dumela Mbagaitsu, Kibidwa Ineeleng Kavindama. I'm a retired fashion designer and an entrepreneur. From fashion designing, I went into medical equipment supplying from 2006. Retired from that in 2020 when COVID hit. And then I've also been moonlighting as a vintage cars collector. And then now I'm into beverage collection. I have a range of Kathiku Beverages, which comprises of the big five, of Kathiku Big Five, which is two types of gins, Kathiku, and then Kathiku vodka, and two types of cream liqueur, Kathiku. And then in our umbrella, we also have canned wines, as well as energy drinks with alcohol, ranging from 5 to 5.5% alcohol. Yes.
Sounds like a very exciting career. To me, you sound like a true definition of a serial entrepreneur. Isn't that what you call yourself?
Guilty as charged.
Can I call you that?
Guilty as charged.
Okay, how was your road from fashion into entrepreneurship? Can you just share a little bit on that?
I went to South Africa to study fashion designing in '94 during the transition of apartheid to the new South Africa. And then I stayed on in South Africa for almost 10 years and then retired at the age of 26 around 2003 because I had done everything that there was to do in the fashion industry, being on TV, media, gotten coverage, gotten the fame, did all the top fashion shows. And then I felt that I had...
You also on the ramp at some point.
I modeled my collection.
Yes.
So I felt that as an artist, you have to get out when you feel that you've reached the end, when you've reached the ceiling. And as far as I'm concerned, I believe that the lifespan of an artist is 10 years. After 10 years, it's either the market evicts you or you have to evict yourself. I chose the latter, hence I voluntarily retired and came back home.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, and then what did you move into?
When I came home, it was at around 2000. I felt that the market wasn't ready, and then because it was at the time when CEDA was setting up, and then
the early 2000s.
Yes, I was coming up with haute couture, which means it's top quality design, high fashion, whereby you could in South Africa, I could easily charge a dress for about 5,000 rand at that time. So I got a shock of my life when I found that people were not ready, and then it was also the time then the CEDA was available for the average Botswana, and everybody was getting loan, and then malls were mushrooming all over the place. Everybody was going to Singapore to buy clothes and still selling from their boots, the boutiques everywhere. So I felt that it was too much of a stampede to get involved, hence I chose to retire. And then fortunately from 2006, I was a part-time fashion columnist for the Guardian.
Called what?
Fashion columnist, writing for the Botswana Guardian.
Yes.
For almost 3 years, still finding out what I wanted to do. And then an opportunity arose whereby somebody introduced me to medical equipment supplying. So I've been there from 2006 till COVID happened. Yes.
Now, how have you fared on that particular vocation?
I felt it's a high income industry because you make a lot of money through tendering. If you are lucky, so long as you supply the right medical equipment. I was fortunate enough that at the time when I embarked on that, the government set up the cardiac program, whereby there was an open tender where we could participate, and then I won the tender, which put me in a better position to supply ICU medical equipment for Ministry of Health. The equipment was supplied to Princess Marina ICU, and then which later moved to Scottish Livingston Hospital. So through that, I got a CMS contract, direct contract, to supply the consumables in order to maintain the machine. So
CMS,
yes.
For those who might not know, it's Central Medical Stores.
Yes. So it was a pretty sustainable and quite a lucrative business, which made me comfortable enough to also invest into other things. Like I went to vintage classics, started collecting a collection of vintage cars with the view of setting up a museum eventually. And then it also gave me enough capital to also embark on real estate indirectly, because I started land banking, buying a lot of property around Gaborone, buying empty plots in and around Gaborone, all the way to Maun. And then it was also fortunate at the time, because it was at the time when Botswana was still open for people to apply for land for free and get it for free. So I did that. So it put me in a position whereby I could accumulate almost plus or minus more than 15, I can safely say more than 15 residentials and other industrial areas and commercial plots.
And obviously, talking to somebody who mentors you in real estate,
I
think you've done very well.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a good place to segue into real estate and to understand why you chose to be my mentor.
Yes.
And how that has helped you in any way, shape, or form.
I had a reason to come to you for mentorship, because I felt that since I'm embarking on a Kathiku Beverages, which can be, if things go well or marketed well, it's a business that can be financially sustainable. So obviously, I'm mature enough to know what I want out of life. I know that when the money starts rolling in, I have to find an avenue where there'll be an outlet. And the best way of investment and the most secure way, it's real estate. Hence, I needed to come here and learn the ABCs of real estate from an expert, from somebody who's not claiming, from somebody who is there.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Of course, Rolf de Roos, one of the people who have prescribed you to read about, who's written a book, Real Estate Riches, says that he noticed early that all the successful people fall into two categories. Either they are making their money through real estate, or when they do make money in their real estate, in their businesses, they store that money or they store that wealth in real estate.
Yes, it's the safer form of banking as far as I'm concerned. Like, for instance, had I not invested and did the land banking, I would have blown the money buying Range Rovers and just blowing it in whichever way a human being can be tempted to blow money. So it kind of disciplined me in a way that it's money that you cannot touch. Once you land bank, the money has been spent in real estate, it's there tied down in plots. And if you don't have money, you're as good as broke, because that money is not accessible. You cannot walk to a bank and withdraw.
With that, what do you say to those entrepreneurs who are known to blow their money in Cape Town and hotels and seaside resorts? When they've made a big tender, they go stay there for a month or two until the money runs out. What do you say to such people?
I say that, of course, as human beings, we all have temptations. We all have that weakness. But I have found out at an early age that the best way to guard against temptation is to buy land, because land, you don't have access. Unlike if you have a multi-million tender zeros in your bank, you are always going to find an excuse to say, oh, hey, I have to go to Dubai. Suddenly you have needs. Hey, I have to go and buy this Louis Vuitton for, there's 100,000 Louis Vuitton that I saw somebody where you want to compete with that. There's a new Range Rover in the market. There's a new BMW. So when the money is tied down in real estate, in land somewhere, you are as good as broke and you give up. You just have to find a way to make more money in order to sustain yourself through other means.
Okay.
Yes.
And then in the meantime, that land is growing in value.
Still appreciating in value.
Yes, yes.
And then you can cash on it later when you get broke.
Yes. I heard you say that you're involved in vintage cars. What kind of business is that and how does it work?
It's more... people think it's a rich man's territory, which is almost equivalent to collection of art, whereby rich people collect arts of Picasso's and all the big boys of the art industry, and then later sell it for multi-millions. So this, it has the same almost a ripple effect, because if you collect vintage cars, it's more or less, it's not like buying your Range Rovers and your current BMWs and things. When you buy vintage cars, I'll say it's almost definitely not on the same level as real estate, but it's more or less on the same categories as collecting art, because art appreciates in value, and so does the vintage cars. If you, like for instance, I have 1939 Chevrolets and 1947 Austin 10s, and all the others, 1973 Range Rovers. I know for a fact that at a time when I go broke, I can easily engage an agent in the UK and then pawn the car for multi-million at some point in time. Yes.
And how lucrative is that business in Botswana in particular?
In Botswana, it's lucrative in the sense that you can go the route of going with renting out the cars for films as well as for weddings and people who want to do props for TV and etc. And also just for displays when people have corporate events, they can hire the car. And then my long-term goal is to have a museum, because I have a collection of about 20 vintage cars.
Wow, it's a big number. And so you it's still running as a business side by side with your other ventures? Yes,
but I'm not too much taking it serious because COVID happened, so I had to freeze it because I didn't want to interact with a lot of people. Because with that, when COVID happened, there was a problem of social distancing. So you can imagine when you hire a car, how are you going to manage who is in your car and their entourage? So it was too risky. So I suspended that.
But haven't things started normalizing now? Are you you're going to resurrect it as it were?
Yes, I will resurrect it. The cars are safely stored somewhere at my warehouse. So I'm not in a hurry to do anything until I get to a point whereby I'm ready to have accumulated enough capital to set up the museum.
Okay.
But I hire them out and also work with artists who hire them out for their music videos.
Okay.
And,
let's talk about real estate mentorship for a second. What have you learned so far? Any lessons worth sharing?
Yeah, so far it's been enlightening in the sense that, as I've said, if coming from an angle of not knowing what the market entails, you either blow money or you make money from real estate, depending on where and what time you get the knowledge that is relevant. For instance, I've started land banking from 2003. Had I known what I've picked up from you, whereby you don't necessarily have to have lots of millions to begin, I could have done something about that. Whereby you have to be having a lot of connections. That's a myth that has been an obstacle to a lot of people. So, and that most of the people who are in real estate and who are in the big league they don't necessarily use their capital, and that the capital is available through the banks. So there are a lot of things that I got to find out, and I feel that even though it's late, it's not too late. But because with the land banking, then I can start off not going. I have already something on the ground and security to start knocking on the bank's doors.
Okay.
Yes.
One of my guests later today is Mr. Gilbert Sisini, and he calls himself a land activist.
Okay.
And he says that it's always possible to release value from land through registration of title. Is it something you are doing?
Yes, fortunately, when I started buying the plots around town, like I bought some around Tsolofeno and Block 10, I engaged a lawyer. At least they introduced me to something called mortgage bond, whereby you can, after getting your title deed, it can be transferred to me in mortgage bond, something that I can also trade that when I start talking to the bank. So I've, converted some of those to title deeds. So I feel I'm in a better position to start knocking doors when I'm mentally ready.
Okay. Let's talk about Kathiku Beverages, which is right here in front of us.
Yes.
Let's first define the name Kathiku. What does it mean? Where does it come from?
Kathiku is my Hambukushi name. I originate from the Okavango. I'm the daughter of the late MP for Okavango, Mr. Joseph Kavindama. Kathiku, I'm named after my paternal grandmother. It means the magic hour just before sunset. You see, before sunset,
when does that
like
beautiful reddish, yellowish look?
Yes. That is what Kathiku means.
Wow.
So I felt that it was befitting to pay homage to my fatherland and then name my products Kathiku. So Kathiku is a collection, we call it Kathiku Beverages because we have Kathiku Big Five, which comprises of the Big Five of the Okavango.
Just take us through the Big Five.
Yes. The Big Five, as you know, are mainly our tourism hub in the Delta. So that one is a blondie. We call it the blondie cream liqueur, Kathiku cream liqueur, represented by the buffalo. And then this one is the leopard, Kathiku pink gin, represented by the leopard. And then this one is Kathiku pure gin, represented by the elephant. And then this one is Kathiku vodka, represented by the lion. And then this one is the Kathiku cream liqueur English toffee, represented by the hippo. Hence, I call them Kathiku Big Five.
Okay.
And then we have other products in our umbrella.
Before you go there,
okay,
is the potency, the alcohol potency, in any way related to the size of the animal or the fierceness thereof?
No, we are complying with the standards. I bottle in South Africa, I package in South Africa, so they come here already packaged as per my instructions. And then this one, the standard in the market for cream liqueurs, like the Amarillas of this world, the standard ranges for about 15%. So ours is like 15% of alcohol content. The standard gins in the market is 43%. Even the vodka goes for 43%.
This one takes you out right away, right?
Yes, but the good thing about our beverages, our gins, Kathiku gins and vodkas, our spirits, is that they are handcrafted. Handcrafted means top of the range. Almost on the same length as the...
handcrafted as opposed to?
Normal gins. Handcrafted means you don't get babalas, what we call gevalas. You don't have a hangover. You can drink it today and still come back to work tomorrow. No headache, no puzza face. You still look good.
Yes.
That is why it's called handcrafted. And even when you go to the retailers, you find them locked up by the teller. Because most of them they are supposed to range because of their the
potency?
Not even the potency, the craft that went through.
Oh, the skill.
Them. Yes.
The craftsmanship.
It's not mass production. That is why it's called it's handcrafted, made in small batches. That is why it's handcrafted and expensive. A normal handcrafted would range from about 350 upwards to even 800 pula.
You're still taking us through alcohol content. I think you were here.
Yes. It's also 43, the spirits, we call this the spirits.
The
They're
three of them.
43% handcrafted. And then this one are the cream liqueurs, which people...
Is it like the Amarulas of this
yes,
world?
Yes, that's
this
what
one?
they say. Yes, but ours is English toffee. Others in the market have strawberry flavors or whatever they opt for. This one is like, we call it Kathiku Blondie. Cream
And this
liqueur.
one?
This one has an English toffee flavor.
That's what I mean, the content?
Yes. 15%, 15.5%.
Okay, all right, like you mentioned, okay.
Yeah.
Now you can shift over to those and take us through those.
Under Kathiku Beverages, we also have canned wines. Canned wines are already there in the market. There's our competitor is the other one that I won't mention, but theirs is 7.5%. Ours ranges from 13% alcohol.
Yes.
So which means you get a double effect of that other one that I don't want to mention. And then we also have something new in the market, which is our energy drinks. Premium energy drinks, as you can see, we've even proud enough to say it's premium because it's not that other one that gives you a
I'm going to
heart
mention it
palpitations.
because I'm not afraid. Is it comparable to Red Bull?
Yes, we are almost, but I'll say premium. There's the other one that I don't want to mention.
Yeah, okay.
That gives people heart palpitations. You know the ones that I'm talking about. I don't want to mention it.
Yes,
because I
okay.
don't want to be sued. But ours, we call them premium. They are almost on the level of top range energy drinks, refined. That is why the label, the stamp, it says premium. We have the 0% with no alcohol. We also have the 5%, which is the rum and raspberry.
Rame?
Rum and raspberry. That is on the sweet side. The label is Ice Diamond. And then we also have this one, which is the premium gin and dry lemon with 5.5%. And then we also have the premium vodka, which is like a spring cooler. Almost like the other one in the market. But our advantage is that we are almost the cheapest on the shelves when it comes to the energy drinks with alcohol. We don't have a lot of competition because they are not there yet. The others, they are the others.
What is the one in the bottle? You didn't talk about that.
Oh, we also have the factory one, which is our entry-level wines. We have the red wine, which is the natural sweet red. We also have the natural sweet white, and then we also have the rosé. We have almost a collection. Our plan is that in the future, maybe in summer, when summer breaks, after winter, maybe towards September, we are also have to have our own Kathiku wines, Kathiku canned wines and Kathiku bottle wines. So that is the
plan.
The route that we were striving for.
I want to take you back to how this came about. What triggered this idea, and take us through the process.
I've been in the medical equipment, as I've mentioned earlier on, from 2006. And then when COVID happened in 2020, I've been there like almost 15 years. And then I had a contract with Ministry of Health. And then unfortunately for me, COVID happened, and then things started getting too political. And then there was a deviation of the norm, whereby we had through the newspapers that the budget for Ministry of Health was being diverted somewhere to the big office.
It was openly stated that they want to take to have a shortcut. I mean, it was during the period of emergency, the state of emergency. So during the SOE, they suspended the entire system of the procurement system. Yes.
And then almost all the procurement went to the big office as per the newspaper reports. And then there was also that call for clarion call, which said that Botswana or anybody interested could sponsor or donate to the COVID-19 relief fund. And then out of my own ignorance, I spoke to the people that I normally work with, the doctors in the Princess Marina, and I told them, since I've been working with you, and some of the medical equipment that I maintain or service were beyond repair. So what can I do to serve? Because since the procurement has been frozen. And then they said that, no, actually you can replace those machines which are almost obsolete with the same products that you've been supplying over the years. I say, okay, is it acceptable? I said, oh, they say, no, fine, you can go ahead. And then I did that, spent my money, bought the medical equipment.
It wasn't in writing, was it?
It was. I went all the way to the person in charge of the ICU, even to the hospital superintendent.
Yes.
And the writing was there. There was almost a directive which says that there's a clearing call. You can assist either in financial terms or in kind. That is there. It's in the public domain. And that's what I did. To my shock, after the equipment came, they blocked me from supplying the equipment. And then it got
On what grounds? On what basis?
On that count that they claim that it's not allowed. Suppliers are not supposed to donate. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Because throughout the COVID, there have been other companies like A, B, and C which have been in the public domain donating COVID laboratory equipment. Others came.
Is it a pure donation? Don't they get paid for them?
I don't know what the agreement was, but all I know is that it's there in the public domain or which companies placed their medical equipment for COVID, for testing.
Yes.
And then I was like, what's so different? I'm in Botswana, wait a minute. But all at the bottom line is that I was blocked. It got too political all the way to the office of the president. And one of the casualties of that war was that Vincent Serret, the former minister, was suspended on the grounds that he was saying, why are you blocking Ineeleng? Because we have taken Mr. Mogobe and Jones and what was
whoever else, yeah.
So he was suspended from BDP because of that. Hence, I said it got too political.
That seemed to end his political career.
Yes, and hence I said that marks, I felt that was the end of my career. Because once the office of the president, or not even the office of the president, BDP starts getting then it gets muddy. So that's how I exited the medical equipment during the COVID. And then
what did you do with all that equipment then?
I'm in the process of I can either hire it out to other institutions. So I can now there's eBay, I can sell it to eBay wherever.
So you're still figuring out what to do.
Yes. So, but the good thing is that you make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that disaster because it meant that it pushed me to start Kathiku Beverages.
To come up with something.
Yes, that is how Kathiku Beverages was born.
And it seems to me that in the general scheme of things, at least potentially, this has much more.
It has more potential, no stress. You don't have to be begging people at offices for a tender or for a GPO. It's smooth. Once you are listed, you just go to any other shop that is listed. You get.
You say it's smooth, but I would imagine the process of securing just the chemist to mix things up and to get the right mixes.
I'm not responsible for that.
Aren't you supposed to organize that? I'm
not responsible for that. I pay people in South Africa to bottle for me. It's just like what superstars do in America. You have somebody owning a brand who's like a cologne that is, says Angelina Jolie or Jennifer Lopez. So you just put your brand on it all, just like what Puff Daddy has done with the cruise. That's what you do. You use your name.
But what about quality control?
No, you instruct a registered plant to do that on your behalf because they are accredited. Like in my instance, they are SABC approved, complied with all the requirements from South Africa, I just instruct them and pay them to bottle for me and to put my branding in there. At this juncture, I'm not in a position to start my own manufacturing plant because it will be tedious and also a lot of headaches and having to deal with overheads and your personnel. And I don't need that at the moment.
When there's an alternative,
smooth, and the smooth.
And then how do you get Bob's also to recognize SAB? Or is it automatic if it's SABC?
So long as it's SABS approved, it comes in like any other product. So once it's approved in South Africa, the listing company, which is your retail stores, they request they have their own requirement list. So once you comply with them, that's it. You are in. You are listed.
Yeah. What about the process of distribution? Where are these products to be found? And what can you tell us there?
Currently, we've just listed with Sefalana, which has about 64 stores. And then
in the country or
in the country
or including Namibia, isn't it?
No, in the country. They also have a leg, I'm told, in Namibia. And then we are also in the process of finalizing with Checkers. We are almost at the advanced stage of finalizing with Checkers. Checkers, as you know, I think they've merged with ShopRite. So they also have stores around, obviously in South Africa, where they originate from. And then, in other, obviously, neighboring countries.
Are you supplying directly to restaurants, for instance? Can you supply black?
Yeah, the good thing about being listed is means the restaurant or whoever is interested in the product has an option to get the product directly from the retailers because they are there, and then I think they're more reasonable at a discounted rate. Because remember, we factor in the margin that the retailer is going to introduce. So we give them at a pretty discounted rate. So it's easy for them and cheaper for them to go directly to the retailers.
What would you, in retrospect, would you say was the biggest challenge in setting up this lovely business?
I think it's a business that in the initial stage it's capital intensive. Fortunately, I have some savings from medical equipment, which meant that I didn't need a loan to start the Kathiku Beverages. I used my own funds to fund the product. And then the good thing is that you are also lucky if you also have payment terms, good payment terms with your retailers or whoever you are supplying. That way it does not affect your cash flow in the sense that some can pay within 30 to 60 days. So you are in a position to negotiate also payment terms where you are getting the products from, so that there isn't a gap whereby there are no products on the shelves.
How difficult is it to actually secure that space on the shelves?
Yeah, there's the listing process is not easy because they want paperwork from the manufacturer, and then how are you going to distribute your logistics, and then all those. So if you don't have those in place, then it can get tricky. But once you have things sorted out, like for instance, I've been fortunate enough to get accounts with the local logistics companies like Bo Sprint Couriers and Bo DHLs and Bo, well, you can even negotiate a distribution or payment terms. You pay after 30 days. So that way it does not stress you financially, because you can pay them in about 30 days after you raise the capital. We want to just touch on mentorship again, because you wanted to say that this business is relevant directly to mentorship. Yes.
Can you draw the line and make the connection?
Like for instance, the overheads are minimal. Like for instance, if at least you started off with a big purchase, like stored the products, have a warehouse, we have that in place already. That is also the advantage of real estate, that even if you've built, you can eventually it will come in handy, and that's where we are now. I don't have to start rent this storage where I'm already sorted on that front. And then the cash flow is almost reliable. Like I'm saying, they have a payment plan of paying anytime from 30 to 60 days. So which means if you are intending to go into real estate, this is perfect in the sense that within maybe 3 to 6 months, I would have compiled a proper bank statement to approach the bank. Because with the tendering process or the medical equipment or any other tendering process, it's haphazard. You can have a big tender once in a year with big money, which you won't even have to work for the next 2 years, which can tide you over for the next year. But whatever cash that you have, even if it's $1 million, it's not good enough to start negotiating with the bank. They say, but where's your first one? We saw that you last got a tender in 2020, so how are you going to pay here? This is unreliable.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm understanding you to be saying the following.
Yes.
And this is the advice you're giving to real estate, to entrepreneurs out there, to say, guys, get into real estate as soon as possible. Convert your profits to real estate, because when the hard times come, you can leverage that real estate to unlock value to get into any other business. In other words, you are able, in your case, you are able to use your warehouse, which you had invested early, your land banking, to position yourself so that you are not overly burdened with debt. So you are able to start actually your business without any debt.
Yes.
Is that my understanding?
I can give a living example.
Yes.
For instance, the contract ended in 2020. Therefore, I can safely say from 2020, I did not have any major income coming in. But because I had land in Tokwe, I unlocked that value. I sold that for cash in order to raise the capital for me to fund this Kathiku Beverages. So I didn't need to go to the bank. So which means going forward is just about cleaning up my bank statement in order for me to move on to the next.
And you had a warehouse of your own to store all this stuff.
Yes.
Yes.
So which means this gives me an opportunity to say, or no, I have a living business. Here's the cash flow for the past 3 to 6 months. Now let's talk. I have other properties now that I want to develop. So hence I'm here just to learn the ABCs, or how do you go about it?
I understand you had a dispute with the Gaborone City Council, which ended up at the High Court, involving, triple story, block 10, all that. Can you please, for those of us who may not know about this, give us the background and tell us what happened?
What happened is that initially I engaged an engineer. And then I said, Hore, I have bought land in Block 10 where I want to stay. I want to develop it into a double story. And then we complied with all the processes of Gaborone City Council, submitted all the papers. It was approved. We went through all the initial stages of setting out. And then, when a double story is involved, much of the responsibilities after setting out is diverted to the engineer, because they use their, what we call indemnity, to
professional indemnity.
Yes, to compile the report, which eventually they have to submit to the council. So it just so happened that around 2014, then the Act of 2013 came into place, whereby...
What act is that?
Whereby it says that you can go into high-rise building for residential as a way of preserving land, because land was scarce, was getting scarce around town. Then they were advising people that you are now allowed to go high-rise, and then even up to 4th floor. So my engineer, who happened to have worked for the Gaborone City Council, was telling me that no, this is an opportunity, because, as you know, your setbacks there in Block 10, we're dealing with about 800 and close to 900 squares or 850 best case scenario squares. Why don't you go up, go 3 floors, and then I'll submit my indemnity to the Gaborone City Council, and then
and
fine.
Provide for parking as well.
And then he also said that, then which means I'll apply on your behalf for regularization, which is already there in any case. And then I had no reason to suspect that something was going to go wrong. And then he compiled the paperwork. We paid for around 2,000 regularization. To my shock.
Regularization.
Yes, which is there. I mean, why then would be the purpose of having regularization if people cannot regularize?
What happened to your shop?
And then when after we submitted, then they rejected. We told them, this is what we have done. We are doing a triple story. And we've paid you 2,000 for regularization.
When you say regularization, was it approved?
We submitted for regularization.
So it was still pending.
And then in the Act, there's an Act of 2013, there's somewhere whereby it says that you can submit for regularization at any point in time, so long as you alert them. It is there in the section.
In other words, you can carry on and do what is necessary as long as you regularize.
Yes, it is there. I know that for a fact because that is what I was shown by somebody who was working
there
to the council, at the council, and who has already applied then for other clients. And he even showed me the approval plan. He said, here we are, because it's a triple story, we have to augment it with more pillars in front. So which means we are just going to set up pillars in front to support the load as a load-bearing element. And then they just came back and said, no, we are rejecting you because your pillars have encroached on the front setback. Your front setback is 2.5. I said, how is it 2.5? Because the space or the diameter being occupied by these pillars is equivalent to me putting a flower pot there. So how is that thing? And then they gave, in their letter, they wrote that it's going to affect the traffic, it is going to affect the fire, people, all sorts of excuses. Then we went to the fire. I said, come and see, guys. How, if there's a fire breaks, and how are you going to be affected? They say no, because normally when there's a fire in any residential place or in any building, we park outside and then we draw our pipes in. Yes. So then they rejected me on that front, and then I went to the land tribunal, and unfortunately at that juncture, the land tribunal president agreed with them, rejected it. And then I went to the High Court. And then the High Court
There's an appeal?
Yes. I went to the High Court. The High Court said, no, the president, you have to, this was wrong. You have to revisit this. And then after going through that, the case dragged on for almost 5 years. I ended up engaging about 3 lawyers in the process, spent more than 100,000 on that. Eventually,
I'm sure it's much more than that.
I ended up representing myself. And then at the last stage, then they were ready to settle because they saw that, no, this wasn't going to end anyway. And then
you were determined to see it through to the end.
Yes. For the other, to set a precedent for the other people who are coming up. No, when the laws are there, I didn't.
You didn't write the laws, you're just applying them.
Of regularization, I didn't come up with the act. The act has already been there. So how's that my fault? Yes. So they ended up giving me an occupation permit
for your 3-story building.
Settlement. Yes, for the
all along it had been sitting there unoccupied.
No, I occupied it because it's my property.
Oh, I see.
Nobody was, unless you came up with a court order to evict me. So nobody had the right to do so.
Okay.
Up to this day, I'm staying.
So it's the case is Ineeleng Kavindama versus the GCC.
Yes, I think
I'll look for it.
I think it's it was more of unheard of because at the time they say, who is this
lady who can take on the might of the council?
Up with a triple story. That's unheard of. We know rich people around the city
who don't have triple stories,
nationals who have never come to me with triple stories. So who is she? So I think that was more of a feeling.
So the final outcome was that did you win with costs?
No, No, there was a settlement.
Oh, I see.
Which obviously they will say different. But the bottom line is that I got my work permit and I'm staying in my triple story.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Congratulations. That's a very nice story.
Yes.
There's a new development at the Land Board which was enacted in April 2022. What do you think it benefits Botswana? Because I've heard that it disadvantages Botswana, but talk about the benefits.
Now, as far as I'm concerned, it benefits Botswana in the sense that Botswana no longer has to deal with the issue of developing land before transferring to the next person. So if you want to, because like they've said, all you have to do is pay 3,000, whether it falls under inheritance or whether it's a donation, because that makes a lot of things easy. Like for instance, we've had a situation that in the past whereby if you are trying to sell Unlock Valley and sell your plot, whoever is buying, the buyer or the developer will come up with things like I'm paying a deposit, I'll pay a balance. What if you run away to the cattle post, or what if you go somewhere and then you don't sign? So it cuts out a lot of that. If you have money, if you want to buy my spot, you pay me cash. Total money, 100%. I sign over the transfer papers and then we get on with our lives. There's no longer that issue.
But there's still the requirement that to a foreigner they pay an extra what is it, 30% duty?
Yeah, but for Botswana, that's no longer our business.
Is a problem, yeah.
That's no longer our fault, because then you transfer that to whoever is buying.
Okay. So is that the only benefit you see?
Not so far it has benefited me. Like I said, when I was selling my plot to raise the capital for Kathiku Beverages, it was smooth. I was paid all my money. I said, no, we don't have to be friends and call each other after 6 months. I want my money 100%. I transfer all the paperwork to you and then we get on with our lives. You develop at your own time. That's it.
Is there still a requirement to develop for the new owner within a certain time frame?
No, which means that falls away, because then it's just about paying the 3,000 and then complying. I think the new thing that they've introduced is that you also have to get a tax clearance letter from BURS.
Okay.
Yes, just that the property is less than 1 million or something to that effect.
But isn't there another provision which people are making noise about, which is that it also has brought in a new change where you have everybody now has to re-register their land. I mean, we went through the LabCAS system where everybody had to but apparently the new act also requires us to do the same LabCAS process all over again.
I think it's better in a way that now the registration process, they said that whatever paperwork or certificate that they will be issuing is almost equivalent to having a title deed. So which means it also reduces the costs for land transfer. Because in the past, then you have to start off at the land board and then move to the deeds council. And then
to the deeds office.
Yes. I'm told the new act then enables you to do everything in once, and the end person gets whatever, either equivalent of a title deed.
Isn't the bigger picture...
Which is beneficial for you to go into the... To get
but we had
a
Mr.
loan.
Senior talk to us as mentees, and his concern was that, the land board doesn't have the skills and the sophistication to implement the act. Implementation is always
I think what I found with
danger.
With most dealing with land boards is that a government would say something, whether a minister or whoever is in charge, they will give a directive, and then when you get down to the offices, they claim that we don't know anything about like for instance, a typical example, I've just disposed of my Tlokwem property. It's been approved, but they were saying, now I did a subdivision and then sold the plots. And then they said that, then where the certificate, they said that at this juncture, the act long came out in April, but as we speak, as of the last time I was at the office, they didn't have the template for the new certificates. I said, then what are we going to be doing?
Implementation is a nightmare.
Yes.
Sometimes they say they need to create regulations first. So maybe
then
they're
why
waiting for
rush
regulation.
and announce?
They
Why
announce
rush
and they say,
announce?
no, the minister is working on regulations. That could take years.
Or months.
If not months, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. You mentioned you have over 10 residential plots. Land banking is your deal. And that sounds very exciting. So what's your plan from a land banking standpoint, from a development standpoint, with these 10 plus plots?
Obviously, the priority is going to watch what's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months. And then after raising that capital, then it will determine of which way am I going to go. Am I going to develop those plot, develop and hold, or do something with it? The term that you don't like, flipping.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I don't think at this point.
Everybody should know that I'm not a fan of I'm anti-flipping.
Yes, so
I
but
believe
if things go well on the beverage side, I won't be in that press position to go the flipping route. I'll just develop and hold. Yes.
Okay, so that is the overall plan.
That is the overall plan.
Yeah, if you have to flip, you flip to develop. But by and large, the overall strategy is buy and
But the
hold.
good thing about land banking is that later it's about raising capital for developing. So once you already have land, it's just about developing later and learning how to cut costs and things like that.
Okay.
So at this point, I won't need to, with the capital that I made, if things go well from the beverage, it puts me in a better position to speak to the bank, say, hold on, no, here's my cash flow. Can you help me grow big, maybe go into commercial, then, you know.
You already told the viewer that you are from Okavango and that I happen to know that you had a bit of a fight at the land tribunal regarding the famous Okavango Delta. You want to share some of those developments and what happened there?
Like I said, I went into land banking and land collection around 2003. That was at a time when land was free, so you could easily go and see a land overseer, and then they'll steer you in the right direction. So I did that. I did the application in 2003, and then they sat on the application for almost. We're now almost on the 18th month. And then eventually, around 2014, they wrote a rejection letter. After I went to some minister's office, they wrote a rejection letter that no, the place is under...
Even though the land overseer recommended it.
Yes, they said that no, there's this Okavango new development plan, or they call it RAMSA. Sites under Okavango are not to be allocated.
What does the acronym stand for? Do you know?
I don't even know. They just wrote RAMSA, which was a shock to us because when we applied, it wasn't there. So later on, as they write that as a grounds for rejection, I'm like, wait a minute, how is this relevant to me? Because when I applied, the fact that the application was accepted, it means the RAMSA was not in place. Had the RAMSA been in place, then you wouldn't have accepted the application. So it's too late. This is irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
And then I took them to the land tribunal, and then the case, I think, was finalized almost in 2018. After I had long even forgotten about that. So I just picked up a call and said, what's going on? Because apparently the president of the tribunal quit or was transferred, and then the cases were frozen. So I phoned in around 2019. I said, Kante, what's going on? Almost, I think, around 2020. In fact, it was 2021. I said, what's going on with my application? We've been waiting at the tribunal. And then they say, tribunal, oh, you don't know. The judgment had long been passed in 2018. I'm like...
You're not called?
Yes, I wasn't called. Then how did you do this? And then I said, okay, send me the judgment. And the judgment says that no, land board, it instructed the land board to say that you should have what you did was wrong.
So you won the case.
Yes.
You didn't even know it.
It was also reversed that the land board did not apply to their mind.
They did not apply their mind.
Yes, in coming to that conclusion. And then number two, the grounds that we raised, I told, we had written that we have to be given a special dispensation under affirmative action.
As what?
Under privilege, just like Basara, Baherelo, marginalized groups.
Yeah.
I'm Mukushu.
Yeah.
So,
I thought you'll use the gender element.
And then not even that. And then one of the grounds I fall under marginalized group. And then somehow even during the course of the trial, their lawyer tried to say, no, how did you know that they were Ramso? You are staying in Gaborone and you are living the good life, so how can you claim you are underprivileged? I say it's irrelevant. Whether I'm Beyonce or staying in Hollywood, the fact of the matter is I'm underprivileged, I fall under marginalized groups. They are Basara, Baherero.
Is there a government policy on that?
It's a government policy which has been there during the Khama era. There was the Mahamta case. They also ground. We gave those presidents. They say, there's the Mahamta case. They won on the grounds that Kibasara. So I fall under that. So I'm claiming my rights. So the judgment told them that no, you have to peruse all the angles and forget about her lifestyle in Gaborone. The fact of the matter is that here is this situation. She's in Bukush. So we went back they were instructed to have dealt with the matter within 3 months. And guess what?
3 months and longer.
2 years on the matter. Until I wrote to them, now I'm going to charge you for contempt of court because you sat on the matter for more than 3 months. What are you saying? So eventually they sat down and then resolved that they'll reallocate me to a site in NG12 along the Okavango. That resolution, guess what, long came out in August 2021. They had said within 30 days, and here we are.
You still haven't been. Okay.
Still haven't
so
been.
You need a lawyer to enforce your rights there.
I don't know what they'll do. They want another fight or not because the.
But what I want to pick up from what you just said is the importance of entrepreneurs knowing their rights and being prepared. And being prepared to fight.
To go all the way.
To go all the way to fight for their rights. I get that impression from what. Can you speak to the entrepreneurs who are watching and just emphasize the importance of having the kahunas to face the system and confront the system?
From my experience, I've always been fortunate to fight or butt heads with the system. Not intentionally so, but just happened by default from the paths or the road that I've traveled made me encounter such problems. And I believe as a Motswana or as an entrepreneur, you need to know your basic rights so that nobody tramples on them. And you must never allow anybody, so long as your conviction tells you that you are right, you did the things according to the law and is stipulated in that way, there are precedents in place. There's no justification under any law whereby you can see it befitting to allocate to so and so under the same circumstances. We are all marginalized and not give to so and so. If, like for instance, I take the story of the triple story. They have done regularization before. There have been worse setbacks. We even gave them examples whereby it's just about 5 centimeters from the wall. And those people have been regularized. And then you come to me because I'm a Motswana, I'm a woman, and then you are saying I cannot build a store. I just take it as total disrespect.
All right, we're coming to the end of our conversation.
Yes.
Let me ask you the crystal ball question. The crystal ball question, which is to say 5, 10, 15 years, let's say 10 to 15 years, what do you see for brand Ineeleng Kavindama, and what do you see for brand Kathiku? Am I saying right?
Kathiku
yeah.
Beverages.
Yeah.
I think the sky is the limit. The industry is ripe to welcome Botswana to go into any form of business, so long as you have you are not distracted by anything. You have a clear roadmap of what you want to achieve. Like for instance, I would say I would assess the situation towards the end of the year. I should think towards the end of the year, I would have covered more stores. Our plan is to spread to other jurisdictions, to the other areas every second month. Like for instance, for now, we're at Sefalana Haipa, Sefalana Sutlua, Sefalana Orapa, Maung, and Shakawe. So after every 2 months, we want to spread so that at least by next year, we should have exhausted the whole stores of Sefalana, and the products being accessible to every Motswana wherever they are. Yes.
And then continentally and internationally?
Oh yes, the good thing is that if things go well, then once listed, it's easy to approach other neighboring countries which fall under the scope of these retailers. Like for instance, Checkers is there in South Africa, is there in Namibia, so it will be easy just to knock on the door because you're already in their system. So that is where we'll start thinking about knocking on neighbors' doors.
What about employment? How many people you see employing, and how many offices? Is that something you think about?
Yeah, at this point, I don't want to suffocate myself with overheads.
I'm talking 10 years from now.
Yes, 10 years from now, obviously, we'll be in a position to do our own packaging in Botswana. So that we get in bulk or do our own infusion in-house in Botswana and then distribute. Because where we are, we deliberately did the packaging as simple as possible because our target market is also the tourism industry. Because when a tourist comes into Botswana, they're not looking for the glitz and glam. They're already accustomed to that. So hence we're giving them as simple as possible, depicting the
to
big
my
five.
eyes, it looks very glamorous.
Depicting the big five with a picture of the Okavango and a little write-up about the Okavango and what the brand is about.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. This is a time where you can get to ask me a question. What is your question for me?
You've been in this industry for almost your adult life. So how did you see that here is a business that is sustainable and here's a lucrative business that I can embark on, divert from your law firm and then focus on that as the main money spinner?
I think I stumbled onto it. Yeah, I didn't quite see it at the beginning. Obviously, the importance of land was inculcated from childhood as Botswana. And we had a simplistic view of it. You had to have 3 places you called home, which is the home in the village, and then Massimo and Moraga. So that also unwittingly developed that sense of appreciation of land in my small mind. But as I grew, I just got fed up with paying rent. So the first step was to just emancipate myself from my landlord. That was the thinking, and the reason why I bought the first piece of property. Because it started with me doing that with respect of the where I stay, and then it developed into where I work. And once I was emancipated there, I didn't have anybody knocking.
From both fronts.
Then I could relax. But like I mentioned in most of my presentations, there was a cataclysmic event which pushed me when actually there was a threat of me losing my license as a lawyer, and that accelerated. It is those typical blessings that turn into disasters that turn into blessings, lemonade from lemons that happened, because I was facing the risk of losing my license as a lawyer, and during that time I focused on personal development, and during the course of that personal development journey, I stumbled across real estate through the writings of Robert Kiyosaki and others, and that's when this happened around 2009, 2000. That's when I realized, let me focus on this.
Yes.
And then as time went on, as the portfolio grew, it came to a point where the law firm was contributing less than 5% of the portfolio. And I realized that, look,
The money spinners.
applying the 80-20 rule, obviously, and then I decided. So that's the story in a nutshell. But as we conclude our conversation, I want you to look at that camera, Ineeleng Kavindama, and leave the viewer with something inspirational and motivational, a take home, as it were.
Yes. All I just say is that you have to follow your gut instincts. If your instincts will never let you down. In business or in any other matter that you come across, your instincts will lead you to the right direction. Like, for instance, I started off in fashion, did well in that, went into medical equipment, did well in that. Now my conviction is guiding me in the direction of real estate and beverages. The two, I feel, are intertwined. So follow your instincts. It will never let you down.
Great advice. Tell them where they can reach you and give them all your contact details.
My personal Facebook page is Ineeleng Kavindama. We also have a Facebook page for Kathiku Beverages. And then we also have an Instagram page, Kathiku Beverages. And then the products are accessible in Sefalana Hyper, Sefalana Sitlua, Sefalana Maung, Sefalana Orapa, Sefalana Shakawe. But in the next 2 months, I think we'll be doing the other surrounding towns.
Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful
The
guest.
pleasure has been all mine.
You did great.